And what's the limitation if one were to do it advertising in the magazine?
So the limitations are a little bit complicated, but basically they generally don't want you to go into too much detail about the offering when you're doing advertising outside of the platform. So, and it depends on the type of advertising you're doing, but in a lot of cases, you really aren't supposed to say how much you're raising and what you're offering and the timeline of your raise. However, there are some ways that you can do that. It's a little bit complicated how they've regulated it, but the limitations are not too difficult to comply with, because you're always, what they really want is for most of the communication to happen on the platform. But you can absolutely go out and tell the world, I'm raising money, go to this website to learn more. You can, there's some limitations on what you can say about it, but there's no limit on your ability to tell everybody however you want to tell them, through social media, through talking to being interviewed by the press, putting it on your blog, putting it on your website. You can tell people however you want.
Is that with and without the platform same thing?
This particular type of investment crowdfunding, you have to go through a platform.
And how much do they charge? If one word.
So they charge a percentage. Generally, sometimes they'll charge some kind of an upfront fee, but usually it's on the back end. It'll be a percentage, like maybe somewhere between, I'd say 6 to 8% usually of what you raise.
So basically, the watchdog is pretty much the platform itself, correct?
Yeah, I mean, there's not a lot of regulatory oversight. You have to comply with certain requirements, and then it's really the platform that just hosts your offering and makes sure everything is being done correctly.
Okay, and do they ask whether there's accredited investor or non-accredited, or really does not matter under the platform?
It really doesn't matter, because under this, and there are other ways to do investment crowdfunding, but this is the easiest way, and there's a cap on how much you can invest. But that cap is based on your net worth and annual income, and it really doesn't matter if you're accredited or not.
As far as the platform, is there a minimum and maximum that you can raise?
I think the minimum might be $25,000. I'm not sure. I'm not sure if there actually is a required minimum, but you are supposed to set a minimum goal. And if you don't reach that minimum goal, the money goes back to the investors. If you have your campaign and you don't reach your goal, the money goes back to the investors. But you can go above that minimum. So, and the maximum is $1,070,000, and that goes up according to inflation. It started out as $1 million, and now it's up to $1,070,000.
Is that per year or per investment?
It's per year.
Per year. So in actuality, one can actually, if they can actually continue to have it for the next year, or it has to be another fundraising.
Yeah, well, so it's measured in kind of a rolling 12-month period. So you can't have any 12-month period in which you've raised more than $1,070,000. So you might have to, if you raise $1,070,000, you might have to wait another year before you start raising again.
And as far as the investor themselves, is there a minimum unit that they have to invest, or it could be set by the... Yeah,
I think there's no minimum. I've seen them set as low as $250. I don't really think there is a minimum. I know there isn't one imposed by law. Some of the platforms might impose minimums, just so it doesn't become too onerous and, you end up with thousands and thousands of investors. But I've seen them as low as $250.
And the book that I read, you mentioned as far as loaning to a corporation, one may not have a lot of regulatory requirement in there. Is that correct?
Well, what do you mean? Do you mean if your investors are lending you money?
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah, so, I mean, it's really up to the company that's raising money to set the terms. So you could say, I'm raising money in the form of loans, and there's not going to be any collateral. There's not going to be any personal guarantees. There's no, I could be up to 10 days late with my payment. It's sort of up to you to decide. There's no requirement on what the terms are really. But obviously you want to make your terms attractive to investors. You don't want to make them so so difficult for investors to even imagine ever getting paid. Then it might be hard to raise money. But you surprised, some people are offering instruments on these platforms where really the chance that the investors will ever get paid is very low, and people are still investing. There's an instrument called a crowd safe, and the chance that the investor will ever get paid is super low. But people are still investing, and I think the reason is that, one, it's a fairly small amount that they're investing, so they're not, they can afford to lose it if it doesn't work out. And then they're hoping that maybe there will be that chance that that company will end up doing really well, and they'll end up hitting it big with that company. I don't necessarily recommend that strategy, but some people are using that strategy where it's a really high risk but a potentially high return.